All right, shalom, shalom. Blessings to all you who find this video. I did not think I was going to be making another video today, but I have been reading this book. It's called Cults Inside Out, How People Get In and Can Get Out by Alan Rick Ross. This is what it looks like if you want to purchase it for yourself. And I just wanted to read a little excerpt out of chapter 4. If you do get the book, that's where I'm reading out of. And if you know somebody in a cult, send this video to them. Or if you've been in a cult, hopefully this helps you. And if you're still in a cult, hopefully you can get your hands on this video and hopefully this helps you, because this is some jam-packed information. It's one of those books that you start reading it, you're not going to put it down if you've been involved in some of these situations, just because it's going to bring so much insight and truth from experts for you to get the information. This Rick Ross guy, he is an expert on cults. He's been studying cults for I don't know how many years and has helped people get deprogrammed from being a part of cults. But anyways, let me just read this to you, and it's going to be a little bit, but I guarantee you that it is interesting nonetheless. So hopefully you stay tuned for the whole video. If not, that's cool. Bless you and shalom early. But here we go. To demonstrate how the term cult, I'm gonna title this video, what is a cult? What defines a cult? Okay. To demonstrate how the term cult can be potentially understood in popular culture, consider its definition. The Merriam-Webster dictionary offers a broad range of meanings. Okay. So if you just look it up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, this is going to be the definitions that you get for a cult. Definition 1, a formal religious veneration. Definition 2, a system of religious beliefs and ritual, also its body of adherents. Point 3, a religion regarded as unorthodox or spurious, also its body of adherents. And 4, a system for the cure of disease based on dogma set forth by its promulgator. Great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work, especially such devotion regarded as literary or intellectual fad. The object of such devotion, and usually a small group of people characterized by such devotion. Okay, so that doesn't give that good of a definition, right? This dictionary definition could potentially include relatively benign organizations, fringe groups, fanatics, zealous devotees, such as people that follow Star Trek, often called Trekkies, or even diehard fans of the singer Elvis Presley. Some enthralled Elvis enthusiasts even established a church, and this has been written about as a cultural phenomenon. But a dictionary definition simply conveys the status of a word. It does not take into account research regarding the application of a word. To define a destructive cult, distinctions are made based on behavior rather than on beliefs. A group may have seemingly unorthodox or spurious beliefs, but this fact does not mean that the group is harmful or intrinsically destructive. All right, some cults are not bad. As the previous account demonstrate, destructive cults deliberately mandate harm, which is then practiced systematically in the group. For example, consider faith-healing groups such as the Followers of Christ or the General Assembly Church of the Firstborn, which prohibits professional medical treatment and prescribed medications. Other examples include the Children of God and polygamous groups in which minor children have been sexually abused as part of their group beliefs and practices. There are also groups like the Brethren, commonly called the Garbage Eaters, led by Jim Roberts. These groups systematically demanded family estrangement and relatively extreme social isolation. What do these groups have in common are mandated practices that do harm with corresponding demands for rigid conformity. This means that such groups by design, much like a machine, inherently and repeatedly produce the same destructive results. As related in the previous historical profiles, the leaders of destructive cults may appear in an array of incarnations, pitching everything from commercial schemes to racism. Cults have also been based on the premise of some form of meditation or yoga, therapy, martial arts, alternative healing, or philosophy. In addition, splinter groups called cults have broken away from established religions such as Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, or Islam. Okay? Psychologist Robert J. Lifton wrote the book Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, which has been used as a guide or a template to explain the techniques cults use to recruit and retain members. In his book, Lifton breaks down coercive persuasion in detail and explains its mechanics. Lifton also wrote a closely related paper called Cult Formation. that essentially condensed many of the attributes associated with destructive cults to 3 primary characteristics. These 3 criteria form what we see as the nucleus of a definition for a destructive cult. So I'm about to read these 3 characteristics of what you would see a destructive cult is. Hold on. Sorry about that. These 3 characteristic criteria are the following. Number 1, a charismatic leader who increasingly becomes an object of worship as the general principles that may have originally sustained the group lose their power. Point number 2, a process I call coercive persuasion or thought reform. Number 3, economic, sexual, and other exploitations of group members by the leader and the ruling coterie. Lifton later reiterated his position regarding the definition of a cult. He said, quote, I am aware of the controversy surrounding the use of the word cult because of its pejorative connotation as opposed to the more neutral new religion. I use both terms in this book, but as in past work, I confine the use of cults to groups that display 3 characteristics of totalistic or thought reform-like practices. A shift from worship or spiritual principles to worship of the guru or the leader, and a combination of spiritual quest from below and exploitation, usually economic or sexual, from above. All right. Psychologist Margaret Singer builds and expands on Lifton in her book, quote, Cults in Our Midst, end quote. In her definition of a destructive cult, she includes elements based on behavior and structure. Singer says that when we evaluate a group, 3 primary areas should be focused on, okay? Number 1, the origin of the group and the role of the leader. We got to know that. For Straitway, how did it origin? What's the origin of the leader? Where did he come from? What group was he a part of? What did they believe before? Number 2, the power structure or relationship between the leaders and the followers. I hear now it's slave-master type relationship over there. Number 3, the use of coordinated program of persuasion, which is called thought reform, right? The verse of, you have to renew your mind, right? I think it's Romans chapter 12. I know I'm misquoting it. Singer's approach is essentially to scrutinize the reciprocal relationships between cult leaders and their followers. It is through such scrutiny that she explains why many people stay in a destructive cult, even when it doesn't seem to be in their own best interest. The most salient single feature of most destructive cults is that an absolute authoritarian leader essentially defines and controls them. A single leader is most often the sole authority, but at times an elite ruling coterie, a small group of leaders, function in that pivotal position of power. The group can therefore be seen as primarily personality-driven and functionally defined by its living leader or leaders. As cited in the previous descriptions of cult leaders, they can be highly charismatic and implicitly expect complete compliance and obedience from their followers. This whole submit or quit doctrine, right? For example, Shoko Asahara ordered devotees to attack the Tokyo subway system, and I can't pronounce this guy's name, demanded that his followers poison townspeople near his ashram to affect local elections in Oregon. The followers of these leaders complied without resistance to their leaders' wishes, despite the fact that these were unlawful criminal acts. Benjamin Zablocki, professor of sociology at Rutgers University, explains, quote, charisma is not to be understood simply in the terms of the characteristics of the leader, as it has come to be in popular usage, but requires an understanding of the relationship between leader and followers. In other words, charisma is a relational variable. Charisma is defined operationally as a network of friendships in which authority is justified. So you got a group, and whatever they see as being the authority figure in that thing, what that guy does and says, it becomes justified. Okay? I hope I'm understanding that correctly. Singer explains the hierarchy of destructive cults in this way, quote, in most cases, there is one person, typically the founder at the top. Decision-making centers in him or her. Illustrating this type of group structure, Singer says, imagine in an inverted T. The leader is alone at the top and the followers are all at the bottom. In this sense, the decision-making power is sequestered at the top, and the general membership at the bottom may not even know the details. That's one of the reasons why I'm putting this stuff out on this channel, because a lot of the people who are in Straitway cult or in other cults, you just don't know the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, and that's why you're trapped. A destructive cult is typically totalitarian, and regardless of its stated purpose or belief system, the quote overriding philosophy is that the ends justify the means, a view that allows such groups to establish their own brand of morality outside normal society bounds. Many destructive cult leaders seem to be deeply narcissistic personalities, as historically characterized by the condition known as narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, according to the DSM. Mental health professionals use this tool to diagnose disorders, but it must be noted that these diagnostic criteria only provide basic guidelines and reflect a consensus rather than definitive diagnosis, which will require specialized clinical training. Okay, so I'm going to give you the 9 points it talks about a narcissist, right? And according to the DSM, you only need a few of those out of the 9 to be labeled somebody who has NPD. So I'm going to read those to you, and you look to see if your leader has these qualities and these traits within them. Okay, number 1, the person has a grandiose sense of self-importance. For example, he or she exaggerates achievements and talents and expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. Number 2, the person is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Number 3, the person believes he or she is special and unique and should associate with or be understood only by other special or high status people or institutions. Number 4, the person requires excessive admiration. Number 5, the person has a sense of entitlement. In other words, unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment, of automatic compliance with his or her expectations. Number 6, the person is interpersonally exploitative. In other words, he or she takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends. Number 7, the person lacks empathy. He or she is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. They just don't care. Number 8, the person is often envious of others or believes others are envious of him or her. Number 9, the person shows arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. All right. Destructive cult leaders are frequently consumed with messianic visions and grandiose ideas about changing the world to suit their own purposes. Some have claimed to be an exclusive vehicle for enlightenment, chosen by some higher power, a supposed psychic connected to historical figures, or even aliens from outer space. Waco Davidian leader David Koresh made such claims, as he was called the Lamb of God. Marshall Applewhite, leader of the cult known as Heaven's Gate, saw himself as the crucial link between humanity required to reach a higher level of development. Sociologist Stephen Kent has applied this description to L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. Kent wrote, Hubbard displayed particular traits of form of the condition of a malignant narcissist in his reactions to perceived opponents, and his personal reactions provided the impetus for Scientology's organizational policies of retaliation and vengeance. If you know anything about Scientology, they literally attack people who leave them and who are against them. In essence, the corporate climate with Scientology largely is a reflection of Hubbard's narcissism and malignant narcissistic rage. Like what you see in Straitway when there's a whole smear campaign that Dowell decides to go on, and then all of his members join on and attack the person that he's attacking too. I've been there, I've done it. And I apologize to any of you if I've done that to you. Destructive cult leaders often seem to be deeply delusional and even mentally ill. Many mental health professionals who have studied destructive cults have labeled some cult leaders psychopaths. Psychiatrist Louis J. West, who is a professor of psychiatry at the University of California at Los Angeles Medical Schools during the Waco Davidian standoff, saw David Koresh as a psychopath. He said the psychopath is often charming, bright, very persuasive. He quickly wins people's trust and is uncannily adept at manipulating and conning people. After watching Marshall Applewhite's final statements on videotape, West said the cult leader was delusional, sexually repressed, and suffered from a rare case of clinical paranoia. End quote. In his seminal book, Without Conscience, psychologist Robert Hare laid the groundwork for a better understanding of psychopaths. Hare studied prison inmates and developed a psychopathy checklist. The Bureau Mental Measurements Yearbook referred to Hare's revisited checklist as the gold standard for measuring psychopathy. The PCL-R profile includes some personal characteristics that impart parallel or overlap a narcissistic personality. All right, so I'm going to lay these things out here for you. Factor 1, personality of an aggressive narcissist. Glibness/superficial charm. Grandiose sense of self-worth, pathological lying, cunning/manipulative quality, a lack of remorse or guilt, shallow affect or emotions short-lived and egocentric, callousness and a lack of empathy, and a failure to accept responsibility for their own actions. Factor 2, the case history, the socially deviant lifestyle. So this is another way it can manifest, right? Need for stimulation/proneness to boredom, parasitic lifestyle, poor behavioral control, lack of realistic/long-term goals, impulsivity, irresponsibility, juvenile delinquency, earlier behavioral problems, revocation of conditional release. You know, that second group reminds me more of like somebody who is a narcissist, but they just get in trouble all the time and they don't become one of these successful narcissists. The first one I would say would be like the people who are successful as narcissists. What Lifton calls thought reform and what Singer refers to as coordinated program of persuasion are what psychologist Richard Offshee describes as coercive persuasion. Often she identifies 4 key factors which distinguish coercive persuasion from other socialization schemas. I'm sorry if this is a lot, but this information is good. All right. Number 1, the reliance on intense interpersonal and psychological attack to destabilize an individual's sense of self to promote compliance. Right? So they attack you to make you not even promote yourself and to grow. The use of an organized peer group, applying interpersonal pressure to promote conformity. And number 4, the manipulation of the totality of the person's social environment to stabilize behavior once modified. That's like these communities that people move on to, right? Controlling your social environment completely. The process Offshee, Singer, and Lifton describe is an intentional transformation of individuals through manipulation and control, which are used to gain undue influence. Coercive persuasion or thought reform leads to the breakdown of critical and independent thinking. Can't think for yourself. It has also caused those affected to become increasingly dependent on the group and its leadership to make value judgments for them, provide analysis, and in some situations to determine the parameters of reality. They literally cannot think or see or make decisions without the direct permission and guidance of the person who is above them. The net result of this process is that those affected often make choices that aren't in their own best interest, but are typically and consistently in the best interest of the group and its leaders. For example, ingesting cyanide wasn't in the best interest of the families at Jonestown, but it was what Jim Jones wanted. Committing suicide wasn't in the best interest of the members of Heaven's Gate, but according to Marshall Applewhite, the time had come for them to shed human containers or vehicles and attain what he told them would be the evolutionary level above human. But religious cults aren't the only groups that use brainwashing techniques. So sociologist Benjamin Zablocki noted in his study of cultural coercive persuasion, quote, "I do not mean to imply that there is anything about religion per se that is especially conducive to brainwashing, or that brainwashing is not also to be found in political, psychotherapeutical, or military and other totalistic collectives. We note that the harm or exploitation by destructive cults, as Lifton described in his 3rd criteria, varies by degree from group to group. This is, some destructive cults are more destructive than others. For example, only a small fraction of destructive cult leaders have ordered mass suicides or violence. Most, this is important, most seem largely focused on the financial exploitation of their followers through the surrender of their assets or free labor, or both. Otherwise, destructive cults harm members psychologically through what can be seen as the intentional infliction of emotional distress, such as public shaming. Damage is also done to family relationships through estrangement and sometimes divorce, which the group may mandate. Educational or career opportunities may also be ignored for years due to the group influence and preoccupation with its activities. Years may go by before an infected individual eventually leaves the group and resumes such interests. This delay may result in fewer opportunities and dismissed prospects for the future. Hold on. Psychiatrist Louis Jolyon West presented the following definition of a destructive cult at a conference which the American Family Foundation, known as the International Cultic Studies Association, held in the University of California at Los Angeles. They later published this definition. West was the director of the Neuropsychiatry Institute at UCLA and studied destructive cults for decades. West stated, quote, "A cult is a group or movement exhibiting a great or excessive devotion or dedication to some person, idea, or thing, and employing unethically manipulative techniques of persuasion and control, i.e. isolation from former family members, debilitation, use of special methods to heighten suggestibility and subservience, powerful group pressures, information management," right? Banning people from listening to other people on YouTube, suspension of individuality or critical judgment, promotion of total dependency on the group and fear of losing it, etc. Designed to advance the goals of the group's leader to the actual or possible detriment of members, their family, or their community. We can see West's definition as largely extending in more detail the three central criteria of themes found in destructive cults as delineated so deftly by Lifton. Now I'm going to read those for you here. Number 1, the group displays excessively zealous and unquestioning commitment to its leaders, and whether he is alive or dead, regards his belief system, ideology, and practices as the truth, as law. Number 2, questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged and even punished. Number 3, mind-altering practices such as meditation, chanting, denunciation sessions, and debilitating work routines are used in excess and serve to suppress doubts about the group and its leaders. All right, I'm almost done. This list is a little long. Number 4, the leadership dictates something in great detail, how members should think, act, and feel. For example, members must get permission to date, change jobs, or marry, or leaders prescribe what types of clothes to wear, where to live, whether or not to have children, how to discipline children, and so forth. Number 5, the group is elitist, claiming a special exalted status for itself, its leaders, and members. For example, the leader is considered the Messiah, a special being, an avatar, or the group or the leader is on a special mission to save humanity. Number 6, the group has polarized us versus them mentality, which may conflict with the wider society. Number 7, the leader is not accountable to any authorities, unlike, for example, teachers, military commanders, or ministers, priests, monks, and rabbis of mainstream religious denominations. Number 8, the group teaches or implies that its supposedly exalted ends justify whatever means it deems necessary. This may result in members participating in behaviors or activities they would have considered reprehensible or unethical before joining the group. For example, lying to family or friends or collecting money for bogus charities. Number 9, the leadership induces feelings of shame and or guilt in order to influence and control members. Often, this is done through peer pressure and subtle forms of persuasion. Number 10, subservience to the leader or group requires members to cut ties with family and friends and radically alter the personal goals and activities they had just before joining the group. Number 11, the group is preoccupied with bringing in new members. Number 12, the group is preoccupied with making money. Number 13, members are expected to
to devote inordinate amounts of time to the group and group-related activities. Number 14, members are encouraged or required to live and or socialize only with the other group members. Number 15, the loyal members, quote unquote, the true believers, feel there can be no life outside the context of the group. They believe that there is no other way to be and often fear reprisals to themselves or others if they leave, or even consider leaving the group. I've said a lot. I hope that helps. Get the book for yourself. Great book. Great read. I'm still reading it, and when I finish reading it, I'll probably make more videos as I come into, more stuff that I find is very powerful information for people in these groups to find. So hopefully that helps you. Bless you, and shalom, shalom.